Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough: decluttering, especially for seniors. Now, we all love the idea of simplifying, of making room for what truly matters, but let's be honest, it's not as easy as it sounds. Today, I want to share 5 harsh truths about decluttering that no one talks about, but trust me, you need to hear them. Letting go is one of the hardest things a person can do. And when it comes to decluttering, it's not just about removing objects, it's about parting with pieces of your life. People say, just get rid of what you don't need, as if it were that simple. But when you've lived a long life, your possessions aren't just things. They are reminders of moments, of people, of experiences that have shaped you. Every object tells a story. Every piece of furniture, every old book, every faded photograph has meaning. You don't just see a chair, you see where you sat to rock your child to sleep. You don't just see a stack of letters, you see the words of a loved one who is no longer here. Decluttering is not about getting rid of junk, it's about making choices. And choices always come with emotions. That's the part no one talks about. They tell you to simplify, but they don't tell you about the ache that comes when you pick up an old sweater and remember the person who gave it to you. They don't tell you about the hesitation you feel when you see a souvenir from a trip you took decades ago. A trip that reminds you of a time when you were younger, when life was different, when the world felt bigger. Letting go forces you to confront time itself. It reminds you that things have changed, that you have changed, and that can be difficult to face. It's one thing to get rid of something you never really cared about in the first place, but it's another thing entirely when you're holding something that represents a part of your journey. And that's where the real struggle lies. Because deep down, we fear that if we let go of the object, we might let go of the memory. We might forget the details, the way a voice sounded, the feeling of a certain moment, the warmth of a past experience. And so we hold on, we keep things, not because we need them, but because we're afraid of what it means to be without them. The truth is, our possessions become intertwined with our identity. That old watch isn't just a watch, it's a reminder of years of hard work, of discipline, of showing up every day and doing what needed to be done. That collection of books isn't just a set of pages bound together. It represents years of curiosity, learning, and growth. That set of dishes in the cabinet, it's the symbol of family dinners, of conversations, of laughter that once filled the room. These things hold weight because they carry stories. But here's the part that's even harder to accept. Sometimes holding on to too much actually weighs us down. We don't realize it, but the clutter, the objects, the things we insist on keeping, they start to take up mental space. They start to make it harder to move forward. And yet, when the moment comes to finally part with them, the resistance is strong because there's always that thought in the back of your mind. What if I regret letting this go? What if I need it again? What if this is the last tangible piece of that time in my life? No one talks about the emotions that rise up when you start sorting through old boxes. Maybe you come across an item you had completely forgotten about, and suddenly it pulls you back decades. You remember exactly where you were when you got it, how you felt, what life was like then. And for a moment, it's as if time folds in on itself, bringing the past right into the present. It's a powerful thing, and it's why decluttering is never just about the physical act of removing things. It's a deeply personal, emotional process that makes you reflect on where you've been, what you've experienced, and what you're ready to carry forward. And let's not forget that sometimes it's not just your own memories you're dealing with. It's the memories of others. Maybe you're going through belongings that once belonged to someone you loved, a parent, a spouse, a dear friend. And now you have to make choices about what to keep and what to let go of. There's a kind of responsibility that comes with that. It feels like a final decision, like closing a chapter that you weren't quite ready to close. And that's hard. That's really hard. People like to think of decluttering as a simple process of organization, but in reality, it's a journey through time. It forces you to examine not just your belongings, but your life itself. It brings up emotions you didn't expect, memories you thought were buried, and sometimes even regrets. There are things you wish you had done differently, people you wish you had more time with, moments you wish you could go back to. And when you hold an object that represents those feelings, it's not easy to let go. But despite all of this, there's something important to remember. Your memories, your experiences, your life, they are not stored in the things you own. They are stored in you. The love, the lessons, the moments that truly shaped you, they don't disappear when an object is gone. They stay with you because they have become a part of who you are. One of the hardest truths about decluttering, especially for seniors, is realizing that the things you have valued for years may not hold the same meaning for the next generation. You've spent a lifetime collecting, curating, and caring for your belongings, and each item has a story. Maybe it's an antique clock that has been in the family for decades, a beautifully crafted piece of furniture, or a carefully preserved collection of books. These things aren't just objects. They are a reflection of your journey, your experiences, and your values. But then, when the time comes to pass them on, you might hear something that stops you in your tracks. I don't have space for that. Or, I just don't know what I'd do with it. At first, it's confusing. How could they not see the value? How could they not want something that has meant so much? You might think, maybe they just don't understand. So you explain, you tell the story of how you acquired it, why it's important, the significance it holds. But then you see it in their eyes. They respect it, they appreciate it, but they don't feel the same connection. And that's when it hits you. The things that have been so deeply tied to your memories are just things to them. It's a painful realization because we naturally assume that what mattered to us will matter to them. We picture our children or grandchildren cherishing the same family heirlooms, carrying on the traditions, appreciating the history. But times change. Priorities shift. What once was considered valuable may not fit into the way they live now. Maybe they live in smaller homes, or they prefer a minimalist lifestyle. Maybe they've grown up in an era where sentimentality is expressed differently, not through objects, but through experiences, digital memories, and photographs stored in a cloud rather than in an album on a shelf. And so you face a difficult choice. Do you hold on to these things, hoping that one day they will see their worth? Or do you accept that their journey is different from yours? That what you saw as treasure, they see as clutter? That doesn't mean they don't love you or that they don't respect the past. It simply means they are navigating life in a different way. There's also a deeper challenge in this realization. If the people you love don't want the things you valued, it can feel personal. It can feel like a rejection, not just of the object, but of the memories attached to it. You might wonder, does this mean they don't appreciate what I've built? Does it mean they don't care about the history of our family? But that's not the case. It's just that love and respect don't always come in the form we expect. They may not take the china set, but they cherish the lessons you've taught them. They may not want the old furniture, but they carry forward the values you instilled in them. It's also important to recognize that just as your belongings hold meaning for you, the younger generation has their own attachments. They have their own special memories, their own symbols of significance, and those may not always align with yours. What they hold dear may not be physical at all. It may be conversations you've had, wisdom you've shared, or the way you've made them feel throughout their life. The legacy you leave isn't just in the objects you pass down, it's in the impact you've had on the people around you. Still, it's not easy to let go. When you look at an item that has been in your home for decades, it's not just about what it is, it's about what it represents. It's about continuity, about feeling connected to the past. Letting go of an object can sometimes feel like letting go of a piece of your story. But the truth is, your story isn't in the things, it's in the life you've lived. The best parts of your journey don't disappear when an object is no longer in your possession. This is where acceptance comes in. It's realizing that just because something meant everything to you doesn't mean it has to mean everything to someone else. It's understanding that love isn't measured by keeping objects, but by keeping memories alive in other ways. Maybe instead of focusing on what people will keep, focus on what they will remember. Focus on the lessons, the values, the experiences, because those are the things that truly last. It's also worth considering what keeping everything does to your own peace of mind. Sometimes holding on to too much can be a burden, not just physically, but emotionally. You may think you're preserving history, but in reality, you may be holding on to things that no longer serve you. There is freedom in letting go, in knowing that the essence of who you are isn't tied to objects. You are more than the things you own. And while it may be hard to accept that others don't share the same attachment to certain belongings, it's also an opportunity to share the stories behind them, to pass down not just the objects, but the wisdom they represent, and an opportunity to remind yourself that the most important things in life aren't things at all. Decluttering is not just a physical process, it's an emotional journey. No one tells you that when you start sorting through old belongings, you won't just be dealing with objects. You'll be dealing with memories, with emotions, with parts of your past that you may not have thought about in years. You'll come across things that will make you smile, things that will make you laugh, and things that will make you pause. And then there will be things that will bring a lump to your throat, that will make you stop in your tracks, that will take you right back to a moment you hadn't thought about in decades. When you begin decluttering, you may think you're just organizing your space, but what you're really doing is confronting your past. You pick up an old letter and suddenly you're back in a different time, hearing a voice you haven't heard in years. You find a keepsake from a trip you took long ago, and for a moment, it feels like you're standing in that place again, feeling the excitement, the energy, the way life felt back then. It's not just about the items, it's about the people, the experiences, the moments they represent. And sometimes those moments bring joy, but other times they bring regret. You may come across an item that reminds you of a decision you wish you had made differently. A letter from someone you lost touch with and never reached out to again. A photograph of a time when you were younger, when things were different, and you realize that there are things you can never get back. Decluttering forces you to reflect, to see your life laid out before you in the form of objects, and that can be difficult. Some items hold the weight of unfinished business, a project you meant to complete but never did, a hobby you once loved but let go of over the years, a gift from someone you cared about but never truly appreciated at the time. It's a reminder of the things you once valued, the dreams you once had, the person you used to be. And sometimes, facing that is harder than simply dealing with clutter. Because when you let go of an object, you're also letting go of the version of yourself that once held on to it. There's also the challenge of facing the truth about time, the reality that life moves forward whether we're ready or not. Some objects remind us of what once was, of people who are no longer here, of chapters of life that have closed, of places that exist only in memory. Letting go of those things can feel like letting go of those people, those times, those experiences. But the truth is, those moments are already gone, and the objects are only reminders. The real memories, the real essence of those experiences exist within us. Then there are the things that bring up emotions we weren't expecting. An old outfit from a special occasion, a book that once inspired us, a gift from a loved one who is no longer with us. Suddenly, an afternoon of decluttering turns into an emotional experience we weren't prepared for. Because as much as we try to approach it logically, as much as we tell ourselves that we're just clearing space, the reality is that we're also navigating emotions that have been stored away just like these objects. There's also a kind of guilt that comes with decluttering, the guilt of letting go of something that someone else gave us, even if we no longer use it. The guilt of parting with something that was once expensive, even though we don't need it anymore. The guilt of feeling like we're erasing the past when all we're really doing is making room for the present. But that guilt can be misleading. Because keeping something out of guilt doesn't honor the past, it only weighs us down. The real way to honor the past is to carry forward the lessons, the memories, the love, not necessarily the objects themselves. And then there's the realization that some things no longer belong in our lives, that holding on to them isn't just unnecessary, it's actually holding us back. That by creating space, we're making room for new experiences, new memories, new opportunities. But that realization doesn't always come easily. It takes time to see that decluttering isn't about forgetting the past, it's about choosing what to carry forward and what to release. At the heart of it all, decluttering is a process of self-reflection. It's not just about deciding what stays and what goes. It's about understanding what truly matters. It's about looking at your life, your memories, your experiences, and making peace with them. It's about appreciating the journey you've been on, the moments that have shaped you, and recognizing that while objects may hold memories, they do not define you. Simplicity leads to freedom, but that's not always easy to see at first. When you look around your home, you see a lifetime of possessions, a collection of memories and things that once had a purpose. Over the years, these things have accumulated, some intentionally, some out of habit, and some because it was just easier to keep them than to decide what to do with them. But what started as sentimental value or practical use can slowly turn into clutter. And that clutter begins to take up more than just space. It takes up time, energy, and even peace of mind. At first, the idea of letting go feels overwhelming. Every object seems to have a reason for staying. There's always the thought that you might need it someday, that it might come in handy, that as soon as you get rid of it, you'll find a reason to want it back. And so you hold on to things. But in doing so, you don't realize that what you're really holding on to isn't the object itself. It's the fear of losing something valuable, of making a mistake, of not having control. But then something happens when you begin to let go. Maybe you start small, a drawer, a closet, a single shelf. You remove things you know you don't need, things that are broken, things that serve no real purpose anymore. And suddenly, there's space. Not just physical space, but mental space. A weight you didn't even realize you were carrying starts to lift. The room feels lighter, and so do you. And that's when you begin to understand. Simplicity isn't about deprivation, it's about freedom. Freedom from the burden of too many choices, too much clutter, too many things demanding your attention. Freedom from the frustration of not being able to find what you actually need because it's buried under piles of things you don't. Freedom from the obligation to maintain, store, and take care of objects that no longer serve a real purpose in your life. With fewer things, there's less to clean, less to organize, less to worry about. And in that space, something powerful happens. You begin to focus on what really matters. Because at the end of the day, it's not the objects that make life meaningful. It's the people, the experiences, the moments. And yet, so often, those things get overshadowed by the physical clutter that surrounds us. A home filled with too many things can become a distraction, a source of stress rather than comfort. Instead of being a place of peace, it becomes a place of unfinished business. Projects left undone, items waiting to be sorted, piles that serve as constant reminders of decisions that haven't been made. And all of that takes up space in your mind, making it harder to truly relax, to enjoy the present, to focus on the things that bring real joy. There's also something to be said about the emotional impact of holding on to too much. Objects carry memories, and sometimes those memories come with emotions that aren't always pleasant. Maybe there's guilt attached to certain things. Guilt for spending money on something that was never used. Guilt for holding on to a gift you never really liked. Guilt for keeping things that belong to someone else simply because it feels wrong to let them go. But guilt is not a reason to keep something. And when you start to release these objects, you're not just creating space in your home. You're creating space in your mind and heart for things that truly matter. There's also a kind of power that comes with making intentional choices about what stays and what goes. It reminds you that you are in control, that you have the ability to shape your surroundings in a way that serves you. Instead of being weighed down by things from the past, you get to decide what moves forward with you. And that choice is liberating. Because when you strip away the unnecessary, what remains is clarity. Clarity about what you love, what you value, what brings you happiness. And that clarity extends beyond just your home. It affects the way you live, the way you think, the way you spend your time. You start to realize that life isn't about accumulating more. It's about appreciating what you already have. It's about making room for experiences, for connection, for growth. It's about living with intention rather than obligation. Of course, simplicity doesn't mean living without things entirely. It doesn't mean giving up the things that bring you joy or getting rid of things just for the sake of it. It means surrounding yourself with what truly adds value to your life and letting go of the rest. It means shifting the focus from having to being. from collecting to experiencing, from holding on out of habit to choosing with purpose. And in that simplicity, there is a kind of peace that is hard to find any other way. A peace that comes from knowing that what you have is enough, that your home is a place of comfort rather than chaos, that your time and energy are spent on things that truly matter. And that is the real freedom that comes with letting go. Decluttering for seniors is not just about organizing a home. It's about coming to terms with the past, embracing the present, and preparing for the future with clarity and peace. It's about recognizing that life is constantly changing and that holding on to too much can sometimes prevent us from fully experiencing what's ahead. Every item we keep should serve a purpose, whether it's functional, sentimental, or deeply meaningful. But when things become burdens rather than blessings, it's time to let them go. This process is not always easy. It requires courage to face the memories attached to certain objects, to acknowledge the emotions that arise, and to make decisions that honor both our past and our future. It's not about discarding the past. It's about carrying forward what truly matters. The memories, the wisdom, the love. Those are not stored in objects. They are carried in our hearts, in our stories, and in the lives of the people we've touched. And as we simplify, we create more than just a cleaner space. We create freedom. Freedom to move without being weighed down by clutter. Freedom to enjoy life without the stress of managing excess, and freedom to focus on the relationships, experiences, and moments that truly bring us joy. Because at the end of the day, life is not about how much we've collected, but about how much we've lived. And when we learn to let go of what no longer serves us, we make room for the things that truly do.